What if I told you there's a place on Earth so far north, so frozen and so isolated that it feels like another planet? A place with no cities, no roads, no normal life. Only endless white ice, brutal wind, and a silence so deep you can hear your own breath. Welcome to Franz Josef Land, the world's northernmost island archipelago, a hidden Arctic kingdom near the top of the planet. This isn't just a group of islands, it's one of the coldest, wildest, and most extreme places humans have ever explored. Franz Josef Land belongs to Russia and sits deep inside the Arctic Ocean, surrounded by the Barents Sea. And here's the mind-blowing part. This archipelago is made up of more than 190 islands, spread across a massive frozen area, most of it covered in ice all year round. In some places, the glaciers are so huge they look like giant white mountains slowly moving toward the sea. From above, Franz Josef Land looks like a shattered ice world, broken into countless pieces, floating near the edge of the North Pole. This place is not meant for humans, and yet, humans still came here, not for comfort, but for discovery, survival, and history. Franz Josef Land was discovered in the year 1873 by an Austro-Hungarian expedition led by Julius von Payer and Karl Weybrecht. They named it after Emperor Franz Joseph I, and from that moment, this frozen archipelago became a target for explorers obsessed with reaching the North Pole. In those days, the Arctic was like the final boss of Earth. Every step north was a battle against freezing temperatures, starvation, and unpredictable ice. Many expeditions used Franz Josef Land as a base because it was one of the closest land masses to the pole, but being close to the North Pole doesn't mean the journey was easy. It meant the danger was even worse. Imagine being trapped on these islands for months, with the sun disappearing completely and darkness taking over the sky for weeks. That's called polar night, and in Franz Josef Land, the polar night is not a short event. It feels like the world itself has switched off. Temperatures can drop far below zero, winds can cut through clothing like knives, and the ocean becomes a moving field of deadly ice. Yet, during summer, something magical happens. The sun refuses to set, and for weeks you get the midnight sun, where the sky stays bright even at midnight. The Arctic suddenly turns into an endless day, but don't get fooled. It still stays cold, and survival is still hard. Now, let's talk about what makes Franz Josef Land truly special. The wildlife here is not just rare, it's powerful. The true rulers of this frozen archipelago are the polar bears. Franz Josef Land is one of the most important polar bear habitats on Earth. These animals are not just cute or fluffy like people think. They are giant predators built for the Arctic. They can smell food from kilometers away, and they can swim long distances in freezing waters. And because Franz Josef Land has little human activity, polar bears roam freely, like kings walking through their own kingdom. Along the coastline, you may also see walruses, huge animals with long tusks, resting on ice like ancient sea monsters. When walruses gather together, the sound is unbelievable, like a mix of roaring, grunting, and heavy breathing. And then there are Arctic foxes, small but smart survivors, moving quickly across the snow, always searching for food. In the sky, seabirds fly in huge numbers because these islands become an important nesting place. The cliffs turn into loud bird cities, packed with life. But the most dramatic scenes happen near the ocean. You may spot seals on the ice, or even whales moving through the cold waters, silently disappearing under the waves. Every living thing here is adapted to one simple rule: survive or disappear. Now here's something even more shocking. Even though Franz Josef Land looks like a simple frozen place, it hides history that feels like a movie. One of the most famous expeditions connected to these islands is the journey of Fridtjof Nansen, one of the greatest polar explorers ever. In 1895, Nansen and his companion Hjalmar Johansen tried to reach the North Pole. They faced extreme cold, broken ice, and impossible distances. When they failed to reach the pole, they had to survive the Arctic winter with almost nothing. They eventually ended up in Franz Josef Land, building a small shelter and living in the freezing darkness, hunting for survival. And in one of the most unbelievable moments in exploration history, they met another explorer, Frederick Jackson, completely by chance in the middle of the Arctic wilderness. Imagine walking in a frozen world and suddenly seeing another human face after months of isolation. Franz Josef Land has many stories like this, where survival and luck decide everything. Over time, more expeditions came, and the archipelago slowly became part of Russia's Arctic territory. During the Soviet era, Franz Josef Land was used for military and research purposes. Some islands had temporary bases and stations because this area was extremely important in the Cold War Arctic strategy. But today, most of Franz Josef Land is protected as part of the Russian Arctic National Park, which means nature here is kept as untouched as possible. Very few people are allowed to visit, and tourism is strictly limited. And that's why this place still feels like a secret. Now let's talk about the landscape, because the scenery here doesn't look real. Massive glaciers cover the island like frozen armor. Some glaciers flow directly into the sea, creating giant ice cliffs that crack and collapse into the water with thunder-like sounds. When ice falls into the ocean, it creates waves, and the whole area feels alive even though it looks silent. The mountains here are rough, sharp, and covered in snow, while the flat areas are like endless white deserts. During rare warmer moments, small patches of Arctic moss and tiny plants appear, proving that life can exist even at the edge of the world. But the true beauty of Franz Josef Land is in its atmosphere. The air feels clean, sharp, and ancient. The sky changes fast, from bright blue to gray storms in minutes, and then there's the Arctic light. Sometimes, when conditions are right, you can witness the aurora borealis, the northern lights, dancing across the sky like a green and purple fire. It's one of the most magical experiences on Earth, and in Franz Josef Land, it feels even more powerful because there are no city lights, no noise, and no distractions. Just you, the ice, and the universe above, but this frozen paradise is also fragile. Climate change is affecting the Arctic faster than many other places on Earth. Ice is melting, glaciers are changing, and the Arctic ecosystem is under pressure. Polar bears depend on sea ice for hunting, and when ice becomes weaker, their survival becomes harder. Franz Josef Land is like a giant natural warning sign, showing how sensitive our planet really is. It is beautiful, but it is also vulnerable, and that's why scientists and researchers continue to study this region. They monitor ice movement, wildlife patterns, and temperature changes because what happens in the Arctic affects the entire planet. Ocean currents, global weather, and even sea levels are connected to what happens in places like Franz Josef Land. Now imagine standing here, in the cold wind, with nothing around you except glaciers and the sound of distant waves hitting ice. You realize how small humans really are. This archipelago is not just a travel destination, it is a reminder of Earth's raw power. This is a world where nature is the boss, where silence is louder than any city, and where survival is the only language. Franz Josef Land is one of the last truly wild places left on our planet, a frozen collection of islands that has witnessed explorers, storms, polar bears, and centuries of Arctic mystery. And even today, it remains one of the most remote and least visited places on Earth. So the next time you look at a map and see the northern edge of the world, remember this name. Franz Josef Land, the northernmost island archipelago, the edge of Earth, and a frozen secret that still feels untouched by time. If you enjoyed this extreme Arctic journey, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and comment which place you want to explore next. Because the world is full of hidden wonders. And this was one of the coldest and most incredible of them all.